Hello everyone, Achadino over here, and today we are doing, let's say, a continuation of our build for Lesser Mirage. Sadly, I am not going to talk with the gear that I have because I'm going to do a completely different build than what I have planned for this video. If you want to check that one out, it's likely going to come quite later because tomorrow it's Path of Exile 2 and I will be playing that for quite a bit. But my idea for this season is to use the bleed gloves to do some cool bleed gaming. Now, of course, this means that I use some different things, but in the future, I'm still even doing some damage with Lethal Mirage. That's why I'm using the maximum shadows relics, and then some random things that I have lying around, Annihilis, etc. etc. So, I am going to go into the planner itself. Let's go into it. There we go. So I have two planners prepared. This is the one that I will leave up on the guide, more on Last Epoch Tools. Then on the comments, I will leave the other one that it's the, let's say, super endgame. This one has, of course, red rings, jungle queens, foots of the mountain, blah blah blah. This was almost the gear that I had last season, but now instead of the one shadows, we have two shadows. Why is this so strong? It's because with all of the damage that we are doing and everything else, we are also using the Lesser Mirage, and remember this Umbral Fist and Shadow Eater. This extra shadow is going to give us one more hit and 40% more damage. This is better than any other primordial, even better than the true sight glass, because remember the true sight glass, if you already have quite a bit of multiplier that we will have from our weapon, this is like a top tier weapon, but let's go into, let's say, a more normal one, just a tier 7 and a tier 5. Multiplier, it's better than lightning penetration if you can, but this one is also fine. I'm using, of course, champions one, and then try to get dexterity at tier 6 or tier 7. It's going to be very easy to find the tier 6 ones, or if you find anyone with tier 7 on the new echo, the primordial whatever it's called, you can use havoc it. Or if you want, if you have already decent mods, you can redemption it and see if you get dexterity. And this is some basic gloves that I got. I, of course, sealed the hybrid health, but if you can't seal the hybrid health, and might as well seal some shred. And the critical strike chance, it's a dead mod. You can put any other mod there and it will be better. Jewel rush are very good. If you have been following my channel for a while, we want those because we use a combo, a very, let's say, you can make it fast, but it can also be a slow combo. Let me show it just now. You would use a smoke bomb, then synchronized strike, shift, and lesser mirage. And you can see it's fast, and we also proc the umbral blade things, and then it keeps creating shadows. So while it creates shadows, if you have more duration, you can synchronize strike, proc shift, and do it again. That way you do a fast combo. Of course you will need some mana, that's why we have that helmet that gives mana, and also mana on the neck on the initial version. And now I will go into the skills from the planner and the passives that we want to get on those. So first of all, let's go into synchronous strike. This makes so we do get 4 shadows. The baseline is 2 shadows, and you will get those 2 shadows. Then the first points that you get is this dynamics, more mana efficiency, because even while leveling, as you saw in my other video, you do want to use this. Don't put dark allies until a little bit later, because otherwise you will run out of mana quite easily while leveling. But we go straight into dark allies if we are already in our monolith phase. Then Crimson Storm. This is important for another node that I will talk about. We don't really bleed with Lesser Mirage, but we want to get bleed from other sources. And this is just a kill threshold thing. When the mob is 15%, this is of course very good on bosses. You can just end it with Synchronized Strike. Then a Smoke Bomb. We basically have a Smoke Bomb as a very strong Silver Shroud. Silver Shroud, remember, dodges everything. Even on Uberroth, I use it quite a bit. Then we have to get more duration. A Smoke Blade is also super good. That's why try to stay inside the Smoke Bomb as much as possible. And then Umbrella Assault, make it so you generate the shadows that you were seeing in the clip before. Then we get some slow, armor shred, and armor shred frequency. If you have more armor shred than usual, you can get 2 points in lingering fumes. This helps it so you actually get more shadows and makes it so it's easier to do the second combo, because now as we have the new primordial buff, we need 7 shadows to reach our maximum potential. Then Lethal Mirage, as you saw before, Shadow Eater and Umbral Fist with 7 shadows. It's going to be a lot of damage and 7 extra hits. Then of course the first things you do when you begin the build is get the 2 Mirages here and the 2 Mirages here, and then you get the Umbral Fist. Or if you don't have many points, you go get the Umbral Fist first and then go and do this. Now, why did we want the Blitz? We want the Blitz because of this point over here. It will do 60% more damage. This means we need at least 20 or 15 Blitz, more or less around that is kind of what you get from that. 15 Blitz kind of caps that damage, and then this gives Blitz chance, but the problem with this Blitz chance is because we have Shocking Grasp, making all of our Blitz go into shock. We're going to shock anyway because of the Blade of Chaos itself, but this disables that. Of course, you do want at this point to get 40 extra lightning penetration. Going to be, of course, super strong. And that's why you get that, apart from the plus 20 lightning damage and the conversion of the base damage. That is quite high. Then we go into Shift. Shift, as you might know, is one of the most important things that we do on our combo, mainly because it finishes our 4 flow combo. I'm going to explain this a little bit later. And because of critical opening. You will always crit with your next non-channeled skill. It works for the whole hits of Lesser Mirage, so it's very strong. You of course also want extra damage. We hit here some 20 and then 30. And then here we create a shadow after using Shift. Now, of course, you also get some extra movement speed, and this extra movement speed actually gives us quite a bit of damage, 15%, 50% here. And of course, because of a passive point, and then some extra mana. Now, on the Armor Blades, there is nothing crazy. You get the one that leaves blades on the ground and the one that makes it so they spin. Of course, we also put some points here to get chill on enemies. Chill is actually quite noticeable on them. And then we also get some mana every time we shift. These are the points itself. Now let's go into the passive tree. As you might know, you do max coated blades. This is of course going to make our combo super pricey to do, but 80% more damage is something that we really can't go without. Lethal Cadence, also a thing that we want to proc. If you don't know what procs it, a Smoke Bomb procs it, but things like rolling or evading or other skills don't proc Lethal Cadence. Then this is the point that makes it so we do more damage with movement speed. So when we proc haste, we actually get a little bit of damage. But this makes it so we take less damage while moving. This is whatever, and this is dexterity. Of course, we do want to get dodge rating and glancing blow, because we are going to cap glancing blows, making it so we have always that 35% damage reduction. Now over here we have, of course, dexterity, damage, and we get some extra movement speed that gives us that extra 8% damage too. Flow, making it so after we do the 4 flow combo that you saw me doing, we have 2 different flow combos: the smoke bomb, synchronized strike, shift, lethal mirage. That's one. And then when a smoke bomb is on cooldown, we synchronize the strike, puncture, shift, lethal mirage. Why puncture? Because it's a fast attack and it doesn't interact with shadows in any way. If you umbral glaze, for example, you are going to throw umbral from the shadows and it's going to spend them. We don't want that. 1 point over here, because it's whatever, it only makes the flow, gives attack speed, and we don't really care about that. We don't want a 5 flow combo, even if this is another way to get 100% crit on our last ability. This is a way to drop shift on some builds, but not on ours. And then this makes it so we get extra damage. Now, of course, this point over here is just the dexterity and glancing blows, droughts, and then we do get apostasy. If you don't really care that much about that, you cannot get this and just have a lot of dodge and use some glancing blows, and sometimes you will get one shot, but it is what it is. Here, of course, damage on full life. We don't really need a blood dance because we already leech from our lethal mirage. Then 4 instead of 5 of perfection, because when we do our whole combo, we only get 8 stacks anyway. And the last stack is nothing crazy. It's only 20% increased damage. So, and it also lets us get over points over here. Now, confidence, of course, is only a point to get into exuberance, making it so we actually do that extra damage at full health. I do have some points in hooked blades, but if you get a lot of armor shred, you don't need this. Like, for example, in the late game planner, it is not needed that much. And of course, Death's Door and All In, this is so you do less damage on your criticals and your non-critical, but on criticals, you get that 75% multiplier. Of course, Death's Door is super strong. We don't really play around it, but it's 24% less damage when we get into that low health. It stacks with endurance, and it actually applies on the hit that would get you below that 24. So if you are in low health, it is going to help a lot to survive. Then on Falconer, we get the extra damage with haste, the more damage with haste, and then just health and dexterity. And here, of course, also dexterity. We do stack dexterity because the Black Blade of Chaos itself gets penetration per 5 dexterity. You can't see the stats that I have on this gear really, but you want at least 16 to 18 lethal mirage cooldown recovery, as much dexterity as possible, as much lightning penetration as possible, as much void penetration as possible, because we do get some void damage from the weapon itself and from our other things. But if you can't get the void penetration and the other stats are very good, you can skip it. Then lightning and void as much as possible flat, and shock and time rot, it is whatever. Titan Heart, very strong. We are using a two-handed, so we take 15% less damage. Try to get Lethal Mirage at least tier 6. And Dexterity, same thing. If it's the other way around, tier 7 Dexterity and tier 6 Lethal Mirage, it's fine. And the important mod is Mirages at least at tier 6, so you get that 2 extra Mirages. Seed of Yggdrasil, we just put dexterity in it, and it does help a little bit on our, let's say, endurance to not get killed, and that extra mana helps us do the combo. Now here you can see that my Nihilist actually has mana, but you can put multiplier on there or even regeneration, or you can put shred and not have shred on your blocks. But I think with 100% shred, it's already enough. Then you'll rush to do the super combo itself and the combo of Shattered Chains and Steamed Fate. This makes it so we have less cooldown of our shift, very important, because sometimes you do want to use shift to use run away instead of attacking. And then Shattered Chains just gives a lot of damage, a lot of melee damage, more damage per stack of Doom. Doom itself already gives some damage, but it's very good. And then Usenui's Sphere gives also quite a bit of increased damage, because we get around 6 water orbs, because we show 3 and then 3. While we are doing our combo, we do that. And that's a lot of extra power that we get. Of course, levels of lethal mirage is the most important, and then dexterity and any resistance or health in my case. Be very careful if you're using Usenuis to not get intelligence or attunement anywhere, so you are on the same point over here. Now relics actually can change a lot on what you want to use, but these are generally the best to have at least 1 or 2. Remember, there's like a table that you can look about your armor shred and the effect. It gets to a cap quite easily. I'm using 2 to get to the cap in one combo, and ideally you get that extra 10 multiplier on the heretical one. As you can see here, I have one with it, but the other one didn't proc it, and I kind of gave up because it's very annoying to reroll them. Then the little small weavers, you put dodge rating until you cap your guns in blow, and then you can choose other things like life or mana, etc. I also have 2 over here that have vitality and melee damage. They are not bad, but if you already have your resistance is capped and everything, this is the average, of course. I have quite a bit close to max, so my resistances are fine. You put another one of these. Of course, idols with health and elemental resistance. There is another way to get a lot of power if to get the ward created on Shadow and get the ones with ward recovery and retention, etc. etc. But that is mainly the build itself. It's going to work very well. I use this to clear everything until uberroth, and then of course it comes the big boy build. This one I'm going to leave on the comments but not on the description to not mess up the import from the last Epoch tools thingy. And here you have just 2 red rings, the foot of the mountain, the jungle queen chaps, and it's basically the same build that I killed uberroth with, but a little bit of differences. I did go for more shadow creation in the end. So instead of the increased armor, I got the shadow thingies and other places, but this works enough. And with the extra 40% more damage on that extra shadow, you will be able to kill it in around 7 to 5 minutes if you do the combos well. Of course, you can get a lot more damage than I did. Instead of this heretical idol and the ones that give vitality, etc., etc., you can put 3 more over here, or just slam as many ward retention and ward per second one that you can. Remember that there are also the 2 slots ones that also have these mods, and that will give you a lot of survivability. With this setup, when I was actually standing, I could eat a flail smash from uberroth if I have enough ward, because Bonnie Clamor Barbot helped a lot. It uses the same combo itself, but the passives are a little bit different. We just don't take hook blades because we have a tier 7 shred on our amulet. So that is everything. Sadly, I can't show you a lot of gameplay with this build, but you have a lot of it on my old season 2 videos. And you can see me one combo in Julra, doing 1000 corruption Orbis, 1000 corruption Harbingers, the full Harbinger Echo, etc. etc. I hope you had a nice one. And if you have any questions, of course, remember to leave them in the comments. I will try to answer them, even if I'm doing other things in other videos. Have a nice day, and I will see you on the next video.